How many roads must a man walk down?
In any one movement within yoga, there's just one breath, one thought, and one physical movement. When I was at drama school, we were being taught yoga for acting. So you say one line of text, to be or not to be, that is the question. And within that line, just coming to this place of stillness and focus, the kind of choreography, an internal choreography. The idea of what does it mean to focus on one point? Inhaling, exhale. And so I started practicing my yoga on Shabbat mornings as a way of improving my acting process. I'd go to shul, I'd come home from shul, I'd realised that the yoga got me very calm and centered and peaceful, and going to shul got me, stressed and distracted. I was like, well, what's going on here? Started looking into Jewish text, realizing there's a bigger discussion, and realizing there's a whole untapped source of amazing material and learning. It was almost like I was following clues towards a hidden code of saying, how do you access spirituality through the body? But I'm not talking about making a body into shapes of Hebrew letters, or like in like a tokenistic way, or just finding loose connections. I'm saying, how do we learn these texts, be absolutely true to the spirit of what they're saying, and yet do it in a way that completely connects the body? It says in Tehillim, in the book of Psalms, Kol atzmatai tamarna Hashem yichamocha. All my bones will say, God, who is like you? Traditionally for the Hasidim, they've interpreted this as shuckling, as moving backwards and forwards through davening. But that doesn't involve all of the bones. As I began looking in deeper, I saw that every word for the soul that the Kabbalah Zohar mentions corresponds to the word for the breath. Neshama, also as neshima, soul and breath. Ruach, as spirit, also ruach, as a kind of breath. Nefesh, as a form of the soul, corresponding to nashaf, as an exhale. Ultimately, the highest forms, chaya and yechida, according to the Kabbalah, meaning echad, meaning oneness. Well, again, this comes back to this one moment, one breath. And the word yoga is the Sanskrit for one, literally combining body and spirit. So what I did was I went back to the Tanakh, went through the Tanakh, finding every reference I could to the body, going through the whole of the Talmud, finding every reference to the body, looking at the Mishnah, looking at Midrash, looking at other rabbinic commentaries. There were little bits and pieces here and there. Around the 14th century, Rabbi Abraham Abulafia, a Kabbalist, wrote this whole vinyasa sequence about inhaling and exhaling, breathing, moving your head like the Hebrew vowels. As I say, there's mentions in Tehillim, in the book of Psalms, of using all of the bones. It talks about in the Gemara, less than a mile from here, how Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, the prince of the generation, the Nasi, the leader of the Sanhedrin, stuck 2 thumbs into the earth, lifted his feet up in the air, and then lowered himself and kissed the ground. And he did this at the end of the Sukkot celebrations in the Simchat Bet HaShoeva. So an early Bibliyogi, if you like. But it says this was a form of prayer. It was like a meditation posture. In the Shemona Esrei, in the Amida, we have bowing, and it talks very specifically about it. It says elsewhere in the Talmud, coming up like a snake, kanachash, during the Modim prayer, using the different vertebrae. So there's never been a Jewish language for precisely referring to the body, because we've been on the move. Our focus has been much more towards the head and the stomach, i.e. filling the stomach. We've got a rabbinic culture of eating too much. There are phrases about, people would joke frequently, the calories you don't eat on Shabbat don't count. Here's news, they do. Look, Rambam wrote, in Hilchot Deot, he wrote in the 4th chapter about saying it's impossible to know God unless we're physically fit. People haven't really focused, they don't know what to do with this. Yeshivas, the idea of sports and keeping fit is seen as levatel zman or bittul zman, wasting time. Yoga has been seen as avodah zarah, it's been seen as idol worship. it comes from fear. There's huge fear from within the Jewish community of trying new things, saying, you know, we can't do it, we're going to somehow dilute it, we're going to somehow lose the essence of it. Well, guess what? We're losing people anyway. In many ways, we have lost a lot of the essence. It's all about becoming one. I mean, excuse me, that's what all these traditions are about. Whether it's Judaism, Christianity, Islam, yoga, it doesn't make any difference. Everyone's trying to say, okay, there's something else out there, there's something bigger. How can I connect to it? How can I get closer to it? How can I get peace within? Yoga is it's a form of physical meditation through these postures which have been handed down from teacher to pupil and teacher to pupil. Okay, firstly, Avodah Zarah, idol worship. You know, yoga is Hindu. According to history, or according to archaeological evidence, yoga predates Hinduism, it predates Buddhism. It's 5,000 years old. It's pre-Vedic, before the Vedic text, before the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita. In the 2nd century, yoga comes together with philosophy, Patanjali. Patanjali being a yogic sage in India. He writes the Yoga Sutras. But at the same time, over here in Israel, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, Rabbi Judah the Prince, is writing down the Mishnah, short phrases. And so I'm saying, well, let's go back to the 2nd century for all intents and purposes. We're going to realign yoga with Hebrew wisdom and run with it. So I teach the Kosher Sutras. Kosher Sutra is a verse, a pasuk, a few words which are from the Jewish literature, and every class is going to be themed around one of them. So the idea of being Ohev Shalom v'Rodef Shalom, loving peace and pursuing peace. That's the theory of Aaron the high priest. So how do we love peace and pursue peace? Well, within a yoga mat, we go into postures which may be physically challenging or psychologically challenging. We can approach them from a non-peaceful, from a violent perspective, forcing our body into them, forcing our knees or our hips into somewhere they don't want to go, and causing our self-damage. Or we can say, okay, here's where my body's at today, here's where my mind's at today. Can I go the distance? Can I just do what I'm able to do? Accept that I may not be able to do that back then today. But yoga is this process of echad, of being one, of being internally still. Shalom. Shalom. Shalom.
When this city is a city that is growing fast. Tel Aviv was not built on the seashore, so people are not aware of that.
They took from different architecture styles elements. There is one significant building, it's called the Gymnasia Herzliya, a symbol for the eclectic style.
It was a very bourgeois city. The city of sophisticated shops. That was Tel Aviv in the 30s. To an extent, nothing has changed.
This is hardcore Florentine. At a period that I played a lot, perform with a million bands. I think the thing I love to do the most is to sit right here and to do whatever I feel like on the computer. I really cruise around the internet a lot, searching for anything creative. Then I express myself through the internet. It's the evolution of music and technology.